Now, the rest of the story.
Alright, welcome back. Might be a little bumpy for you guys. I chose a bad camera mount. So, if you guys are shaking a little bit, it's mainly the camera. I'm down at the valley, spreading fertilizer. Something that it didn't get last year was a bunch of dry fertilizer. And pulling the 7920, pulling it with the 7920, I think was a big plus. Being able to adjust the speed is really nice, but I got the front wheel assist and the duals on. I just got done with the lower bottom. I'm on the bench right now. The ground's still a little soft down there, which is to be expected, but it's also March 12th, which is like 2 to 3 weeks earlier than what I normally spread fertilizer down here. It's been a dry winter. It was a dry last couple of years, honestly. We're not going to worry about drought talk anymore, at least not for this video. They're calling for rain tomorrow. Not as much as they were originally calling for, but they are calling for rain tomorrow. And getting this dry fertilizer down before a rain shower is pretty high on my list of priorities, because after tomorrow there's really no call for rain for another week, which that means just more time to work on stuff. Still got to do a bunch of engine oil this afternoon. All I got left is the 46, the 82, the Bobcat, and the four-wheelers. So not a lot left to go. But when you're working on some of this ground that has abundant deer pressure, you got to watch out for antler sheds. Alright, came across two. One was actually right by the barn here. The other one was still attached to the deer, but out in the middle of the field, so I had to drag him to the edge of the field, because finding antlers in the spring of the year or in a new year with a tire isn't fun. If you farm long enough, I imagine everybody's had that experience at least once. It's nice being able to go, well, I'm only going 10 right now, but I was doing like 12 to 14 down on the straightaways down on the bottom. You guys are still there. Aiming for a really strong first crop. Last year I only got, if you want to take the weather issues out of the way, with just looking at the rain that we had, I had about a crop and a half down here. If I could have made first crop without the issues that I had on it, and had put my dry fertilizer down without the late frost, without being flooded twice, I want to say about 400 bales down here. Second crop, with all the issues that had against it, actually yielded better than first crop did. First crop was only 198 bales, 213 if you want to cheat and say the lower bottom, that soft ground that likes to hold water, that was still, I'd say, technically first cut. I mean, we'll just go ahead and say it was. That got me up to 215. The second crop got rained on. Really looked like it was going to be a beautiful crop. We still ended up making like 210, 208, somewhere in there. So, and that, my second crop had 25 gallons of liquid 32 on it. What I want to do different this year, depending on how the weather treats us, I'm actually going to focus more on putting the liquid 30 pounds of liquid 32 on the second cut Reed Canary coming back on the bottom, because basically it doesn't matter how dry the year is. That canary grass down there, it's already rooted down. It's in moisture. You don't have to dig very far down to find water. I mean, we actually tore that old fence out and the water was only like 2 foot down. That was going on 2 or 3 years ago now. But I know I have my best chance of getting a second cutting at some point off of the bottom itself. If I wanted to gamble, which last year wouldn't have been was a very bad year to gamble anything, but if I wanted to gamble, I'll think about it this year. We'll see what the weather does. If I wanted to gamble, I could actually look at the lower bottom, or the bottom itself. If I can get it made the 1st of June and maybe take a second cutting off of it in July, and then hit it again with a heavy dose of nitrogen and probably a foliar again, and then try super duper hard for 3 cuttings off of the bottom itself. Don't get me wrong, it actually crossed my mind last year trying to do 3 cuttings exclusively off the bottom, and then having the bench and the old pasture and the neighbors, and just doing 2 cuttings off of that. In the late years recently, since I've had this down here, I've only had 1 year where I could take 3 cuttings off of everything, where I could have really justified it. And that was a year where I think first cut was strong, like 300 or so bales. Second cut, that was like 200. And then the third cut, cutting all 120 something acres, we still ended up getting like 100. That was about a bale to the acre. We got about 127 off of third cut that year. It was still over 700 bale year. But I have the dynamics of my operation is I'll have to sell so many bales regardless, just because selling the hay is helping pay for my inputs, my rent. So then whatever hay above that can be held back to feed my cows, and having a little bit of a backup or some storage. I have to find somewhere to go with a couple of tubes of dry hay to keep for myself, because definitely planning this year, next year, I'm trying to get a little bit of storage built up so I'm not so absolutely short on feed, but also having the ability where, like last year, I didn't hardly make any decent hay, where at least I have some hay in storage that I can go get and then just try to re-up it so it's not any older than 2 years. I'd like to keep any of my hay in storage, anything under 2 years old, but something to keep feed in front of my cows, which they are due to calve. I thought it was the 27th, they're actually due the 24th, and I'm trying to break up talking about the cows a little bit, because that's pretty much all I have interest in talking about over the winter. The only interesting thing that's going on is we're taking care of cows. But I do have a few of them that look like they could calve at any day. I'm actually really excited about that, because I do like taking care of cattle, and it's always fun when mama isn't chasing you out of the cow lot by all means, but it is fun, taking care of calves, watching them grow. I have a better program this year to where I'm gonna have a lot bigger calves much sooner going forward into this fall. largely just making sure I don't run out of dry fertilizer. This only says I'm at 65.5 acres. Problem is it's not mapping 100% because I didn't have it on. But the truck is coming back. I have another delivery of dry coming, and this will be 100% done. Hopefully do a liquid after first crop, a foliar a week after I apply that. Missed my turn, and gonna try to push it down here to perform. I didn't produce much of any hay last year, and I didn't sell hardly anything. But just for what grass prices have fluctuated a lot. But for what I ended up moving, bales wise, I actually made more than I made last year selling what hay I sold the year before. And what I ended up selling this year, I actually made more than last year, and I basically had a disaster year down here last year, just with all the troubles that this had, and then me getting my second crop rained on like it did, so then the quality fell flat in its face. I'm looking at hopefully keeping a third of my first crop and then 2/3 of my second crop, so that way I'd have a bunch of nice second cut grass to feed my cows. That's the intentions anyway. Row crops, why aren't we doing any tillage? I know guys, I just passed, never even seen the tractor and a piece of equipment before. It looks like a high-speed disc. There's guys that are working ground up. I got a bunch of dirt that was moved. I want to get that worked up and seeded down. And I actually have some standing stalks that I didn't have a chance to chisel last fall, that I'm not in the mood to chiseling anymore, just because for how dry this winter has been. We have about 160 acres of ground that we would typically chisel yet this spring on a regular situation. And the situation is now we're looking at just disking it as deep as we need to do a good job of working it in, and not digging down deep with the chisel plow and dragging up all that moisture, because we're worried that the moisture we got is the moisture we're going to get. Granted, I'm more worried about just making sure we can get everything to germinate, let those plants root down and find moisture that is there, because we've had moisture. Granted, just making sure it doesn't dry out the soil, or we're not drying out the soil unnecessarily. And looking for rain eventually, hopefully in the summer again. But it's having more time to work on some of this stuff has been kind of nice. This is probably the last real job I had for the 79 to do, and I'm not against putting it on the planter and start going over that, because if we look like we're having an early spring, I would like to try to, we all would like to get our crops in definitely in a timely manner and being ready to do it. Alright, I'm about pretty well out of fertilizer. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm going to try to find a better mount. I do have a better camera mount to put in here before planting, so you guys aren't getting motion sickness on me. But I gotta head back to the farm, and after I'm done here in about another hour or two, I gotta head back to the farm, change oils, and hopefully get right on to doing some of my other jobs I got lined up. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you like riding along. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later.